Anyway, welcome, Drink with James, episode 67. I'm back from France. I get back from vacation, people are always like, was it hard to get back? And I'm like, no, motherfucker, I live in New York City. I love my job. I love the people I work with. It was not hard to come back. I do miss the palatial estate that I was staying at. That is true. Coming back to my tenement apartment was not ideal, but I love coming back to New York. I always say that the best thing about leaving New York is coming back. But I'm a, typical snobby New Yorker. Influencers out there, you can just like earmuffs, cover your ears, close your eyes. This is not for you. If you work at a brand, we've got a brand conference coming up. Tim will throw the link up. Influencers not allowed. It's in New York City. Okay, influencers, you can take the earmuffs off, open your eyes. We have a date, we have a location, we have a city for the next conference. It is happening in October as well. We will be announcing that in the next week. So get excited. Okay, so influencers. Tim and I just came up with this. He's being stingy, but here's the deal. I'm gonna give you a couple clues. If you can guess where it is, we'll give you $50 off. So my two clues are, one, the location where we're having the event has a pool. Two, there was a scene in Mad Men filmed in that pool. Those are the clues. First person to put it in the comments where it's going to be, you get $50 off admission to the conference. But the trip was great. Thank you for asking. Downside, I did that thing that happens sometimes where like you come back from a trip and you get sick. And I've just realized what it was. I was sitting in steerage in the back of the plane somewhere, and there were no less than 13 children within like throwing distance. Like if I was going to throw something at them, I could have hit them. Like 13 within a few rows of me. And I think their kid germs just infected me. I had like 4 or 5 different types of sicknesses at the same time, which is shocking. I had a fever, I had a head cold, and a stomach bug all at the same time. I'm hoping it's all done. If you saw my Insta stories, I was very dramatic about it because I am very dramatic about everything. But for those of you who reached out with sympathy, I appreciate it. For those of you who didn't, that's your decision. But we're gonna roll on to the show. Question 1. It talks about impressions on Instagram. So what's a healthy amount of impressions that you should be getting on your posts? For you, those of you who don't know, if you have a business account, you can see the actual amount of impressions that you got. And there's just some analytics that you can get from the back end there. So you've got your follower count, let's say it might be 10,000, but it will say how many people actually saw your posts in a given week. Obviously that fluctuates quite a bit given the mood of the algorithm on that day. But the question is kind of what should you expect? Now, first of all, like any platform, Instagram has a huge amount of like any platform, Instagram has a huge amount of people that no longer use Instagram. And I've seen it varying, but I've heard it's from 30 to, between high 20s to mid 30% of total of the amount of people on Instagram don't use it anymore. So you can look at your following and say that like there's probably 20 to 30% of those people who maybe aren't using the platform anymore. Especially applicable to people who have been on the platform longer. Let's think about all those people who, when Instagram came out, they signed up, they posted a couple photos, they said, this isn't for me. It's still active, it's still an account, they haven't deleted the account, but they just don't use it anymore. In Fohr follower health, that might show up as a lurker. But so you've got, anywhere from 25 to 35% of the platform that's not seeing it. So throw that out right away. So again, let's say you have 10,000 followers. The most who are going to see it are probably 7,000 people, 6,500, 7,000 people tops. Now you've got the algorithm, throw that in, okay? So they're optimizing, they're doing all these things, blah, blah, blah. Let's cut that in half. You're down to 25 to 30% on a good day. On a not good day, it can go even lower. So I think on your poor performing posts, you're looking at 10 to 15% is probably kind of on the low end. And then I think what's probably normal is 20%. And then on the posts that perform quite a bit better, I think you could look to do higher. Again, I think the highest you could ever really hope to get is 60 to 70% of your follower count that's seeing a post. I don't know that I've ever seen that, but that is kind of the top. So I think if you're hitting at 20%, you're probably good. If you're doing above that, you're awesome. If you're doing quite a bit below that, do better. I think to get to a business account, you just switch it in your settings. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it. Honestly, I don't think the insights that they give you are that great. Would you agree?
Yeah, they're not.
I mean, they tell you some demographic information, but you get that on Fohr card as well. It's on your profiles. They tell you these impressions numbers, but clients aren't really asking for it that much because so many people don't have business accounts. And then you have the lingering question of, is Instagram devaluing business accounts because they want those people to pay to promote their posts? It is certainly possible that they are. That is what they did with Facebook. They make billions of dollars a year advertising on, with Facebook advertising. So it's not crazy or inconceivable that they would do that. So is it worth switching over? My thought would be no. I don't see a big reason. I think there's this thing in the beginning where it's kind of fun. You get a couple new data points, but those data points don't change that much. And because they're oftentimes dependent on the algorithm, I don't know that there's so much that you can really do about it. The other thing is that the whole ghost ban on hashtags. There was a rumor that you only got ghost banned if you were a business account, which would make sense. They don't want businesses abusing hashtags to try and mess up people's feeds and get their shitty products and, herbal teas and migraine medicine put into your feed when you don't want it there. We are not able to corroborate either of those things. That is just pure speculation and rumor, but I just don't see the huge benefit. If I'm wrong and there is some benefits, let me know. But we run Fohr card as a business account because it's a business, but I don't think we use any of the insights really. So that's my 2 cents. Moving on. We had an interesting question from a follower who is I think a fairly new watcher to Drink with James. Anyway, what happened was essentially brand reached out. They wanted to work with her. She asked for money. They pushed back. She said, no, I need money. Then she watched the episode about how, especially if you have a smaller following, it's more important to build relationships. And especially with a new brand, it's important to build relationships. So maybe the first time you do it for free and you try and turn that into a paid relationship. And she went back to the brand and said, hey, actually, I'm open for future, paid or unpaid opportunities. Just let me know, et cetera, et cetera. And the brand said, great. But then this gets convoluted, but I think it's a good question, so stick with me here. So then she had a friend who did the campaign that was like, oh, I think you burned a bridge with them because they're a really great brand to work with, and you kind of screwed up there. First of all, I maybe throw a little middle finger up to that friend. That friend doesn't sound super nice. So that's one thing to just consider is just reevaluating your friendship group. Hold on. I've been sick for 3 days. This is my first drink in 3 days, so I'm just I'm like a fucking lion after a drought going down to the watering hole. Thank you. So after you've reevaluated your friendships, have you burned the bridge? I would say if you burned that bridge, it was, I'm just going to extend the metaphor and say the bridge wasn't that sturdy to begin with. You asked for money, which is totally reasonable. They pushed back. You came back and said, you know what, reconsidered. I'd love to be like considered for future opportunities. They said, okay, great. If that burned a bridge, if you asking for payment burned a bridge, then that's not a brand you want to work with, and they're not going to be a great partner. There are times at Fohr, you know, on smaller gifting campaigns when we literally can't pay anyone else, where if we pay people any more, we will lose money. And as much as I love you guys, I also would like to make money off of this whole world. So there are times when people will ask for money and we'll just say, I'm sorry, we can't, like we literally can't pay you. That doesn't make us not want to work with that person. Now, if you're asking for something ridiculous, if you have 10,000 followers and you say you want $3,000 for a post, we will probably never reach out to you again, just because that's so far from reality. You're so far off the mark that it's not even worth the conversation. But if we've had a real conversation and we just didn't have the budget to move forward, and everyone was, you know, everyone was upfront and honest and cordial and nice, there's no reason you wouldn't reach out again. Now, in general, now if you've come back and said, hey, actually, I would like to be considered for unpaid opportunities in the future, then like, that's great. They've already wanted to work with you once. They'll probably want to work with you again. So I think hold tight. You're going to hear from that brand again. Your friend is probably just trying to stir the pot a little bit. If you have pissed them off for asking for money, then again, I would just show them the middle finger, walk away. There are thousands and thousands of brands in this world. Each singular brand in itself doesn't really matter that much unless it's Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, Saint Laurent, Balenciaga. I wouldn't piss them off. But everyone else, piss them off all you want. Welcome to A Drink with James. No, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to reveal the brand name or the influencer, but the brand that it was, it's not a make or break brand. There are brands that are very, very well respected, and like you know, you certainly don't want to mess about with them too much. But this was a kind of smaller, less known brand, and again, I don't think you've burned a bridge with them. If you did, I really wouldn't worry about it. Move on. Again, as we say, focus on growth. You know, focus on hitting 50K. Don't worry about the money too soon. You'll be just fine. Look, what? Oh, there's another? Oh, shit. Is it necessary to respond to every event invite for PR companies? Counterpoint, it takes you 10 fucking seconds to respond to the email. Hey, thanks so much for inviting me, can't make it. Next, you stay on the list. You don't sound like an asshole. It doesn't take much time. Don't tell me you have a huge amount of email. Like, I get it. Literally take 30 minutes out of your day, an hour, and group those emails, you know, twice a week, burn through them. Thanks so much, can't attend at this time, but keep me in touch for future events. There are a lot of PR companies that have amazing clients, and they also have really shitty clients. And so if they've invited you to 3 of the shitty client events and you say you didn't want to go and you just didn't respond, and then that Gucci invite comes up, you think they're sending it to you? They're not sending it to you. You haven't said shit to them ever. So like, there's just no way they're going to do that. But being kind, I can't go, keep me in mind for future events. You could keep that in a, you know, like a text edit document. You could keep your like standard no response, copy and paste, you know, copy it and just paste it in, paste it in, paste it in, paste it in, paste it in. If you can't spend 5 seconds responding to an email of somebody who's invited you to something, then you must be the busiest person in the world. I just don't think there's an excuse. But I'm sick and in a bad mood, so I don't know. So stay tuned. Mad guests coming up, more whiskey, more knowledge, all of the things. Also, I will never stop cursing. Cheers.